Mommy, where are we going next?
Let's check the map, sweetie.
Oh.
The map slipped from her pocket just as she knelt to tie her daughter's shoe. It caught the wind and drifted across the zoo path, just as her knees gave way. Mira, 8 months pregnant, collapsed without warning in front of the giraffe enclosure. Her little girl stood frozen beside her, clutching a worn stuffed giraffe, too stunned to cry. Dozens of people looked, some even gasped. But no one moved, no one except Rex. On patrol with his handler across the plaza, the canine's ears snapped forward before the crowd even registered the fall. Something was wrong, something deeper than a stumble. Without a command, he surged into motion, cutting across benches, dodging strollers, leaving behind the handler's shout. He did not bark. He did not hesitate. And by the time the first scream pierced the crowd, he was already there, standing over the woman, facing the chaos, ready to do what no one else had, like share, subscribe, and comment if you believe dogs sense more than we do. The zoo bustled with the kind of life that only came on weekends, families tugging strollers over uneven paths, children begging for snacks, teenagers tossing popcorn toward flocks of pacing peacocks. The sky was clear, the breeze carried the tang of kettle corn and mulch, and Mira was smiling. For once, she wasn't thinking about swollen ankles or delivery dates. Her daughter Ella tugged gently at her hand, the 6-year-old's face glowing with excitement beneath the wide-brimmed sun hat Mira had packed just in case. Giraffes first, Ella insisted. Waving the folded zoo map in her hand like a flag, Mira chuckled, placing a hand on her rounded belly. You and your giraffes, Ella didn't answer. Her attention had already shifted to the plush giraffe she carried under her other arm, a well-loved toy named Pickle. Its ears chewed from years of comfort. They passed under a shaded archway toward the savannah exhibits, the gravel crunching underfoot. Mira paused once or twice, catching her breath, but brushed it off. She was 8 months in, and the weight of carrying her second child was simply more tiring than she remembered from her first. Still, today was important. A day for Ella before everything changed. A day just for the two of them. Not far off, Officer Danny walked her usual weekend patrol along the zoo's perimeter paths. Her partner, Rex, a lean Belgian Malinois, padded beside her with a smooth, almost soundless gait. His black tactical vest bore the bright yellow words Zoo Security, and the glint of his polished ID tag caught stray sunbeams as they passed. To most visitors, he looked like a precaution, a prop for peace of mind. But Rex was more than that. Trained for crowd response and advanced medical detection. He'd once alerted Danny to a heat stroke victim in a packed summer crowd. Before any human had noticed the man wobbling, Rex scanned the world in loops of smell, sound, and body language. He didn't bark unless necessary. He didn't lunge, didn't whine. His power lay in noticing what others didn't, until it mattered most. At the giraffe overlook, Ella leaned over the railing, staring wide-eyed at the tall, swaying creature munching lazily on leaves. She's got spots like Pickle, she said, holding her stuffed toy toward the animal, as if they might communicate. Mira stood a few feet back, rubbing the small of her back with a sigh. Her zoo map was now folded and tucked into her jacket pocket, but its corner fluttered slightly with each step she took. She squinted into the sun and blinked. For a split second, she felt a pull behind her eyes, a wave. Something not quite dizziness, more like her brain stuttering mid-thought. She blinked again. "Mama?" Ella turned just in time to see Mira stagger. It wasn't dramatic, not like in movies. Her knees softened. Her foot missed a beat. And then she was sinking, one hand grasping toward the railing, the other instinctively reaching toward her daughter. The folded zoo map slipped from her pocket and scattered to the pavement. Her fingers brushed Ella's shoulder and missed. Her breath caught in her throat. Then she crumpled to the ground. Ella screamed. At first, no one moved. A couple standing nearby glanced over, confused. A man pulling a wagon slowed but didn't stop. Someone asked, "Is she okay?" But it floated unanswered in the crisp air. Mira lay curled, one arm beneath her belly, the other motionless at her side. Her breaths were shallow. Her face had gone ghostly pale. Ella dropped Pickle, the giraffe toy, beside her mother and froze. Across the plaza, Rex's ears shot forward. The world changed for him in an instant, like a string snapped. He pulled tight on his leash. His muscles tensed. Danny felt it first in her wrist. Then she saw his nose twitch, his entire body posture shift. He wasn't reacting to a command. He was deciding something was wrong. Danny followed his line of sight. "Rex, what is it?" But he was already moving, not bolting yet, but pressing ahead with purpose. The leash strained as Danny kept pace, weaving through crowds. People barely noticed as the K9 and handler slipped between clusters of tourists and noisy snack lines. The closer they got, the faster Rex moved. A stroller rolled past. A child cried about dropped fries, but Rex didn't waver. At the top of the hill, Danny caught sight of the giraffe overlook. A small crowd had gathered. Something was on the ground. Someone. Rex broke into a sprint. "Mira!" Ella's voice cracked through the crowd. "Mama, wake up!" Pickle the giraffe lay half in shadow, half in sun, next to Mira's outstretched hand. As Rex reached the edge of the clearing, he slowed only slightly, then pushed through the legs of startled onlookers, positioning himself between Mira's still body and the rest of the frozen crowd. He didn't bark. Instead, he stood tall, his body tense but grounded, head high, guarding. His vest caught the light. His presence changed the air. Danny pushed through seconds later. "Back up! Give them space!" She dropped to Mira's side, felt for a pulse. It was there. Barely. She looked to Ella, who stood shaking, tears streaking down her cheeks. Danny reached out but knew it wasn't her the girl needed right now. It was the stillness beside her, the dog, the quiet guardian who had moved before anyone else had even understood. And then Rex did something he almost never did. He lay down beside Mira, one paw nudging the edge of Pickle, the other curled near her belly, nose close to her breath. He stayed there not because he was told to, but because he had chosen to. Then Mira stopped breathing. For a moment, the zoo seemed to exhale. The giraffes shifted lazily in their enclosure, their long shadows cast across the pavement as if nothing had happened. But just a few feet away, Mira lay still, her breath now shallow, then gone entirely. Her chest, which moments before had lifted in uneven pulses, stopped moving altogether. And that's when the crowd shifted from curiosity to panic. A mother gasped. A teen pulled out their phone. Somewhere in the background, a toddler began crying. Officer Danny dropped to her knees beside Mira, her hand darting to the woman's neck. Come on," she muttered. There was still a pulse, but faint, thready. Mira's lips had taken on a bluish tinge. Her face was damp with sweat, her hair matted to her forehead. And her belly, swollen and full of life, sat unmoving beneath her coat. Ella let out a strangled sob. "She's not breathing." Rex didn't move from Mira's side. His body was low, his head down, ears twitching to the sounds around them, but his eyes never left her face. His paws still pressed lightly against the stuffed giraffe, Pickle, as if anchoring them all in place. "Rex, stay," Danny said, pulling her radio from her belt. "Medical emergency at Giraffe Overlook. Adult female, unresponsive, possibly full-term pregnant. Immediate backup requested." The radio crackled in reply, but she didn't wait. She leaned in closer, checking Mira's airway, listening for breath. Nothing. She gently tilted Mira's head, swept her mouth with a gloved hand, and began compressions, slow, measured, purposeful. The crowd had drawn back slightly, her voice and uniform granting her a space others couldn't hold. But it was Rex who made the space feel safe. He lay like a stone wall, his presence enough to keep the crowd from pressing in. Every so often he'd glance at Ella, ears flicking at the girl's quiet whimpers, then back to Mira, watching for something, anything. Ella stayed kneeling, hands gripping the edge of her mother's coat. She didn't speak, just stared at Mira's face, waiting for it to move, for it to change. She had never seen her mother like this, silent, pale, still. Her fingers clenched Pickle's leg, but the toy didn't comfort her now. Nothing did, and then Mira gasped. It was jagged, shallow, but it was there. Danny's shoulders dropped in relief. That's it. Stay with me, Mira. She placed a hand on Mira's shoulder, then gently guided her onto her side, the recovery position. Rex close, she said, not because he needed the command, but because it grounded her. He moved subtly, readjusting his body closer to Mira's legs without breaking posture. Mira coughed once, weakly. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Mama! Ella surged forward. Danny caught her gently. Easy, she's okay. But she needs help, all right? Ella nodded fast, tears streaking her cheeks. She fell down. She said she was tired, but then she didn't talk anymore. I know, sweetheart, Danny said softly. You did everything right. The sound of an approaching golf cart echoed down the path, a bright orange emergency vehicle modified for the zoo's terrain. Paramedics jumped off before it had even stopped moving. One of them, a woman with a cool voice and quick hands, knelt beside Mira while the others set up oxygen and vitals equipment. As they worked, Rex backed away a few feet at Danny's signal, but stayed facing them, alert and ready. Visitors were still watching, some taking video, others shielding their children's eyes. But no one dared get closer. She's stable now, one of the medics said, placing an oxygen mask over Mira's mouth. Possible syncope with hypoxia. Could be heat, blood pressure, or gestational. We'll know more at the hospital, baby, Danny asked quietly. Still movement, the medic said. Fetal pulse detectable. She's lucky. No one said it, but everyone felt it. Lucky that someone had acted. Lucky that someone had seen what no one else had. Rex had done more than protect. He had watched, interpreted, and chosen to intervene. Before any adult had shouted, before a single finger had tapped a phone screen, he had moved with purpose when others had frozen. Mira blinked slowly under the oxygen, her eyes landing on Ella first. A ghost of a smile curved her lips beneath the mask. She reached for her daughter's hand. Then she saw Rex. At first her brow furrowed, confused. Danny stepped in. You fainted. We think it was a drop in blood pressure. You stopped breathing for a bit. Mira's eyes widened. But Danny nodded toward Rex. He got to you first. Before anyone even realized you'd fallen. Mira turned her gaze toward the dog. Their eyes met, hers weak and blurred, his sharp and unblinking. It wasn't the kind of gratitude you put into words. It just lived there, between them, like a thread stretching across breath. But just as the medics prepared to lift Mira onto the stretcher, a scream erupted from the far end of the plaza, not a cry of confusion, but panic, a deep guttural shout. Then shouting, footsteps, people running. Danny snapped to attention. Stay with them, she told the medics. Rex, heel! Rex leapt to her side, body poised, ready. The scream echoed again, this time closer, and from the way the birds scattered and the crowd shifted, it was clear. This rescue wasn't over. Danny barely had time to scan the scene before another shout split the air, closer now, sharper, layered with panic. He's got a knife, someone yelled, and that word cut through the plaza like a fire alarm. The zoo's easy rhythm shattered. Footsteps pounded the pavement. Screams rose in chaotic waves. Children cried. Parents dragged them away from the epicenter, unsure of where to go. Danny's radio crackled as updates flooded in from security. A man, possibly experiencing a mental health crisis, had shoved a staff member near the aviary and was now running through the zoo, weaving erratically. Visitors were being ushered behind barriers, staff locking down pathways. No casualties yet, but that could change fast, and Danny was the closest responder. She turned instinctively toward Rex. With me. But before she moved, she looked back. Ella was still kneeling beside the stretcher, one tiny hand clutching Pickle the giraffe, her other hand resting on her mother's now stabilized chest. Mira had faded into a shallow sleep, the oxygen mask misting gently with each breath. She looked fragile, but alive. Ella looked shaken, but aware. I'll come back, Danny said, crouching beside her. Stay with the medics. Don't leave their side, okay? Ella's eyes were wide. She nodded, silent, and held Pickle tighter. Danny rose and tapped Rex's vest once. The Malinois didn't bark. He simply adjusted his weight forward, scanning. The edge in his body language sharpened, his calm now charged with alertness. They moved quickly, cutting across the thinning crowd toward the aviary trail. Sprinting toward danger was second nature for Danny, but this time her thoughts snagged on the girl she had just left behind, on the mother whose pulse she had nearly lost, on the stuffed animal still pressed between a child's fingers. She forced those thoughts down. Focus. Rex led the way. They rounded a bend just past the lemur path when they saw him, a man in his late 30s, sweat pouring down his face, his shirt half torn. He clutched something in one hand, shiny, curved, not large but enough. A folding knife. The blade glinted in the sun as he spun around, clearly overwhelmed. He wasn't charging, not yet, but he was unpredictable. Dangerous. Staff had formed a hesitant semicircle near the meerkat exhibit, trying to steer guests out, but the man was too volatile to approach. Danny raised a hand. "Sir, stop. Hands where I can see them." He didn't. Rex tensed beside her, but didn't lunge. He watched the man's every move, waiting. "Drop the knife," Danny said again, voice steady. "You're scaring people." "We don't want anyone hurt." The man took a step back, then two forward. His eyes flicked toward a group of people clustered behind a fence. That's when Danny saw it. In the crowd behind him, hidden behind a kiosk, stood Ella. She was alone. How? Danny's mind raced. The medics must have moved Mira toward the loading gate. Maybe a shuffle in the crowd separated them. Maybe Ella had wandered just a few steps, looking for Danny, trying to follow. She was no more than 20 feet away from the unstable man. She hadn't been seen yet, but it wouldn't take long. "Rex, wait," Danny whispered, holding out a hand. The dog understood. His muscles coiled, ready, but held. They couldn't risk the man reacting violently if startled, but if Ella moved, if she cried out, it would draw attention immediately. Danny tried to signal behind the man with her hand, hoping someone would grab Ella, but no one saw, or they were too afraid. The man began shouting again, unintelligible, angry, wild. Ella looked from the man to Danny, then to Rex. She didn't understand what was happening, not completely. But she didn't move. She just clutched Pickle tighter, frozen behind the kiosk. Danny felt her pulse spike. "Sir, I need you to—" The man turned. He saw Ella. His eyes locked onto her like a misfired signal, and he took one step toward her. Danny didn't have to say it. Rex moved, not with noise, not with fury, but with precise, blistering speed. He crossed the space in seconds, angling not for the man's weapon hand, but for his balance. Trained for crowd response and non-lethal intervention, Rex leapt low, hitting the man's knee at full force. The man staggered, howled, and dropped his arm, the knife clattering to the ground. Danny was there half a second later, weapon drawn, boot kicking the blade aside. "Down!" "Hands out, now!" The man hit the pavement with a grunt. Danny restrained him quickly, adrenaline humming. Around them, zoo guests shrank back, some filming, others crying, but no one hurt, no one except the child who had come far too close. Ella Rex was already beside her. She had dropped Pickle in the scuffle. Her arms wrapped around the dog's neck, burying her face in his vest. She wasn't crying, not yet. Just holding on, Danny approached slowly. "Ella, are you okay?" The little girl nodded, still pressed into Rex. "He didn't see me until I moved," she whispered, barely audible. "But Rex saw me first." Danny knelt beside them. "He always does." A paramedic rushed over to take Ella's hand. The man was being escorted away, the knife bagged, the crowd dispersing. Security tape pulled across the walkway. But in that pocket of quiet, under the partial shade of the enclosure sign, one dog and one little girl sat together in a hush that words couldn't reach. Then Danny's radio crackled again. "New status at medical gate," a voice said. "Woman's condition just changed. Again. They need eyes on it now." Danny looked at Ella. Ella looked up, lips trembling. And Rex? He was already turning back toward the sound of urgency. Danny's boots pounded the pavement as she cut back across the plaza. Rex sprinting ahead by inches, his black vest catching the streaks of late afternoon light. Behind them, the plaza buzzed with residual fear, staff corralling guests, walkie-talkies crackling with status reports. But Danny wasn't listening to any of it now. Her earpiece only repeated the same chilling phrase, "Status change." Woman's fading again. No fetal movement. Rex didn't need the words. He could feel the shift. The air itself was different now, sharper, urgent. When they rounded the bend near the service gate, the scene had already tightened into triage mode. Mira lay inside the open rear of the emergency transport cart, oxygen mask still over her face, pulse ox clipped to one finger. Her skin, which had regained some color earlier, had now gone waxy. Her stomach barely moved. The medic's voice was low but tense. Her heart rate's tanking. Baby's not reacting. We've got 2 lives dancing on a thread. Danny didn't wait for orders. She approached the cart and knelt beside Mira, gently brushing her hair back. "You're going to stay with me," she said softly, even though Mira's eyes were closed. "You've come too far." Ella appeared seconds later, escorted by a shaken staff member. Her small frame looked even smaller against the metal gate, and she clutched Pickle again, but this time not like a toy, more like a relic. "She's not okay," Ella said, not asking, just stating. Danny turned. "She's fighting. I want to hold her hand." One of the medics hesitated, then nodded. Ella climbed onto the small step of the transport cart and reached for Mira's fingers. They were cold. She didn't flinch, just held on. Rex positioned himself near the edge of the cart, not intruding, but anchoring the space. His eyes flicked from Mira to Danny to Ella and back. Something inside him shifted, some primal equation balancing what was routine and what was instinct. Then it happened. Mira twitched, not her limbs, her face. A sudden flinch, a flurry beneath her eyelids. Her mouth moved beneath the mask and her stomach tightened, then released. Then again. The medic leaned in. "We've got fetal response. Movement detected. She's having contractions, irregular but present." Danny exhaled. "She's trying to deliver," the second medic muttered into his radio. "We need an airlift. This isn't a ground evac anymore." Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. The nearest hospital wasn't far, but Mira wouldn't make it on a standard ride. She needed surgery or intervention soon. The baby's heart was slow, but it was there. Mira's was slower. Time had turned into a razor. Ella leaned in closer. "Mama?" Mira stirred, and then, to everyone's surprise, her eyes opened, faint. Glazed but aware, she saw Ella first. Then Danny. Then Rex. Her lips moved behind the mask. Danny leaned in. She said, "Dog," the medic translated. Rex shifted closer. Mira's hand reached up. Not far, not strong, but enough. Her fingers brushed the coarse fabric of Rex's vest, catching the yellow lettering. She rested there for a beat, her palm flat against his ribs. Danny watched, unable to speak. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't theatrical. Just stillness. A human reaching for something stable in a body she no longer trusted, and the dog staying there, unmoving, until she stopped shaking, but fate wasn't finished as the airlift team prepared for landing near the back lot. A ripple of movement passed through the team. A medic cursed under his breath. No stable pulse. "She's gone again." "No," Ella whispered. "No, no, no." Danny acted before hesitation could take root. She climbed onto the cart and took over compressions. "Count for me." 1, 2, 3. The numbers blurred. The sun dimmed. And in that crucible of sweat and sirens, Rex made a sound no one had heard from him before. A single, low whine. Not loud, not panicked, but full of something deeper. As if even he, the well-trained K9, was grappling with the unfairness of watching someone fall this far twice in one day. And then he moved, without command. Without warning, Rex leapt up into the cart, careful, deliberate, placing his front paws beside Danny, his face inches from Mira's. "Rex, stay back," Danny began. But Rex ignored her. He leaned forward, nose brushing the oxygen mask. Then, slowly, he laid down, his chest against Mira's side, his heart against her heart, and something changed. The pulse ox beeped, once, twice, faster. Mira coughed violently. Her whole body shuddered. She gasped in air like someone surfacing from the bottom of a lake. Everyone froze. The medic leaned in, pulse returning. "The baby's moving again." "She's back." Rex didn't move. He stayed pressed against her until her breathing steadied. Then, gently, he stepped back down. Returning to Ella's side, Danny blinked hard. "I don't know what just happened." Ella reached for Rex and whispered. He gave her some of his heart. The helicopter's blades cut through the sky overhead. The transport team took over, lifting Mira's stretcher toward the lot. Danny squeezed Ella's shoulder. "You ride with me." Your mom's going in the chopper, and we'll follow fast." But Ella didn't answer. She looked down at her stuffed giraffe. Pickle, now dirt-smudged and torn at the seam. She handed it to Rex. "Can you keep this safe for her?" she asked. Rex took the toy in his jaws, not crushing it, not chewing, just carrying it, and behind them the medics called out one final phrase: "She's stable," but not out of the woods. 3 days later, the zoo was quiet again. Gone were the panicked screams, the flashing lights, the chaos that had cracked the air like thunder. In their place, gentle chatter, the hum of the reptile house's cooling system, and the familiar call of the peacocks roaming freely near the fountains. Mira lay propped up in a hospital bed near the window, a light blanket pulled to her waist. Her skin, once pale and shadowed, had regained color. Her lips no longer trembled when she spoke. The monitors beside her had quieted their alarms, now just blinking in rhythm with her recovery. In her arms lay her newborn son, barely 6 pounds, swaddled tight in blue cotton, his chest rising and falling against hers like the tide. He had arrived early, but strong. Doctors said the trauma might have ended differently if it weren't for the immediate intervention, if she'd fallen in a place without trained response, if no one had moved, if no one had cared. But someone had. Ella stood by the window, tracing her finger along the edge of the hospital glass. In her other hand she held Pickle, now stitched, freshly washed, a tiny blue ribbon around its neck, a silent badge of survival. Mira looked at her daughter. "Have you seen him yet?" Ella shook her head, then glanced toward the hallway. She didn't have to say his name. The door opened, and in walked Officer Danny, wearing jeans and a hoodie instead of her uniform. And just behind her, ears perked, vest gleaming, Rex. He moved carefully, as if sensing the room's hush, his step slow but assured. Ella turned and ran into him, dropping Pickle as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Rex sat, leaning slightly into her, his tail thumping once, then again. "You promised," Ella whispered into his fur. "You kept her safe." Rex nuzzled her cheek in response. Danny approached Mira's bedside, her expression soft. "You look more alive than the last time I saw you." "I feel it," Mira said, her voice still hoarse. She looked down at her son. "Meet Micah." Danny's face broke into a smile. "He's perfect, you told me." "Rex got to me before anyone else did," Mira said. "That he stayed. He didn't just get to you," Danny said. "He read the moment, protected Ella, positioned himself between every threat and the two of you. And when we thought we lost you again, he did something I've never seen." Mira nodded slowly. I remember a pressure, warmth, like something saying, "Not yet?" That was him. There was a silence then, not awkward, but full of everything they didn't have words for. Ella tugged on Rex's vest, pulling him gently toward the bed. "He brought Pickle back, too." Rex placed the stuffed giraffe on the edge of the blanket. Mira reached for it, cradled it in one hand, then set it gently beside Micah. "He's already surrounded by guardians," she said. From the corner of the room, Danny pulled something from her jacket pocket. A folded, smudged piece of paper. "Found this in your coat that day," she said. "Figured you'd want it back?" Mira unfolded the zoo map, its creases worn, edges soft. A small tear marked the giraffe overlook. She smiled. "Funny, that's where everything stopped and started." She turned it over. On the back, in a child's handwriting, were 3 crooked words. "Rex saved us." Mira's eyes welled. Danny smiled. Ella insisted. Rex shifted slightly, as if embarrassed by the attention, but didn't move from his spot near the bed. He sat like a sentinel, watching the newborn, the mother, the girl. He didn't understand awards, or news stories, or the headlines that were now circulating. K9 saves pregnant woman in zoo collapse, protects daughter during second crisis. But he did understand this room, these people, and the weight of what instinct had done. "He's off duty for a few days," Danny said. "Zoo leadership wants him honored next week. Ceremony, plaque, probably a medal. He won't care. But he should know." Mira reached down and stroked the top of Rex's head. "He knows," she said. "He knew before I did." Ella looked at her baby brother. "Can we visit the zoo again?" Mira looked at Danny. Danny smiled. "Next time, guided tour. VIP, I'll make sure of it." Outside the hospital window, the sun had begun to set, casting long orange shadows across the parking lot. The world kept moving. People walked in and out of doors. Babies cried. Nurses laughed down the hallway. But inside the room, something held still, something unspoken, the kind of stillness you feel only after the storm breaks and leaves behind a new sky. Ella leaned in toward her brother and whispered, "You came into the world the day a dog saved our family." Micah stirred in his sleep. And Rex? He stayed right where he was, guarding them all. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes dogs are more than companions. They're family. Subscribe for more real, emotional rescues where instinct becomes heroism